Monday on the briefing, the USA Today, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal all reported that the number of stay-at-home dads has doubled over the last 25 years. All three stories skewed the research to make it look as though this is mostly by choice, but a careful analysis of the data shows that it is more likely an economic decision. The recession of 2008 was a major driver. 80% of stay-at-home dads are forced to do so economically, and of the 20% who choose to stay home, 35% do so because of disability, 23% cannot find work, 22% are in school or retired, and only a bare minority actually choose to stay home. So while the media would have us believe there's a major shift in cultural trends, the facts just don't bear that out. Those dads who stay at home are poorer, older, and have less education than their working father counterparts. In spite of what the media would have you believe, there's really nothing to see here. Buried deep in the Seattle Times on page B7 last week, a report in the AP shows that 100 Washington state residents died by assisted suicide, and there were 170 requests for lethal doses of medication, up 47% from the year before. More than 95% of the requests came from the west coastal areas, which are more liberal politically. California pioneers the court-assisted one-day divorce, as reported in the New York Times this weekend. Couples show up in the morning, a legal assistant goes over the paperwork to iron out the details, and after lunch a judge finalizes the termination of the nuptials. Tuesday, Dr. Moeller shares a New York Times op-ed piece that discusses the number of people who take the Bible literally. 42% of Americans believe that the Bible's account of creation is true, even among those who believe in some form of evolution. Author Charles Blow is complaining about literalism and finds it difficult to understand how so many Americans can believe the Bible can convey actual facts and accurate truth claims about things that have taken place in time and history. The secular writer says he doesn't want to deny anyone their rights to religious opinions, so he claims, but his column is full of venom against anyone who thinks the Bible is true and evolution is false, contradicting himself at every turn. Despite all of the professed belief amongst Americans, church attendance is at the lowest point in American history. Another secular New York Times writer tells us our eyes are being fooled when we see design in the universe, that we are being driven by an evolutionary instinct that must be overcome in order for the world to actually make sense. That's right, this writer touting evolution tells us we must overcome our evolutionary instinct, which seems once again to be contradictory. Columnist George Johnson writes that creationists and conspiracy theorists belong in the same camp because we share a deep disbelief in accidents such as those which drive evolution. Secular hubris on vivid display. Monday's Wall Street Journal talks about how worldview battle lines are being drawn in comic books. No pun intended there. There was once a code among comic book publishers that they would never show the villain in a sympathetic light or glorify crime or evil for the protection of their young readers. Those rules started going out the window in the 90s. In 2011, Superman renounced his American citizenship before the UN in one comic book, and now those rules seem to be all but gone as moral relativism is now poisoning the youth via every media stream, sadly even once safe comic books and graphic novels. Wednesday, Dr. Moeller returns to a story from the New York Times about a collision between university bias policies and evangelical university groups. Many universities are revoking recognition of university student Christian organizations because they won't award leadership positions to non-believers. Some universities offer exemptions on bias policies for student Christian organizations, and most student ministry groups allow anyone to attend their meetings but insist if you're going to lead a Bible study, you actually believe the Bible. The Washington Post reports on its front page on the 20th anniversary of the O.J. Simpson car chase and the subsequent trial, this event became a major shift in culture, opening the door to reality TV and shaped a new coarsening of the culture as the investigation and all its gory details were discussed openly like never before. It apparently opened a new lust for crime dramas on TV such as NYPD Blue, CSI, and Law & Order, which all depicted vivid murder, rape, and all manner of violence, which was never seen in such details on television before. Does a culture define us, or do we define the culture? More on euthanasia, this time from Switzerland. The Right to Die group known as Exit is now offering suicide services to elderly who have no terminal conditions. Religious groups and medical authorities have condemned this new practice because it cannot be ruled out that the elderly could not come under pressure to take their own life for the greater good of society, causing them to have to justify why they should not commit suicide. Euthanasia in Switzerland has been legal since 1942.